Welcome to Project Pack number 19. This is day 12. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And we are joined today with Molly to take us through this wonderful adventure.
Hello, everyone. Well, welcome to the last day. It's been really hard to hold off with shading this piece, but in the beginning, we thought it would be a good idea because it was so large that we would be smudging and smearing the graphite and white chalk that we decided to save it for the end. And it's been a process. This has been a journey, and we have all added so many strokes into these pieces to finally get to this point. And it is a labor of love here. And I have to say, I think I spent a whole day doing this one day. I didn't talk to anybody and
just shading.
Just shading.
Yeah.
So take your time, enjoy the process, and don't feel like you're behind. Or I hear people saying that. It's okay. Wherever you're at in this piece, take your time, enjoy the process, and just go along at your own pace.
Yeah. So remember, we've been working on this for weeks, so
months.
We don't expect you to
Months.
do it in a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have to all realize that all of ours are so different, and take from it whatever you want to. But we all came with it with different minds and different ideas, and I love that they were all different.
So as many of these videos were encouraging people to maybe watch them through first and then go back and do yours in a way that maybe is reflective of what you saw in all the different styles. So with this last video, we've actually recorded 4 of the 5 artists that have been teaching here, and then we have a still shot of the last one, but to show you some really different ways, not only have these projects evolved, but how then we did this last step. So here, this is my piece, Molly's piece, and I really wanted to dig deep into creating form with the chalk and the graphite. So when I went at these poke root here, I put my graphite pencil in one hand, and my non-drawing hand, and my chalk pencil in my non-drawing hand, and 2 tortillones, and I kind of just went back and forth, adding a little bit of graphite, using, that graphite tortillon to kind of blend that, and then going back in with the white chalk to almost create these very dimensional shapes. And what's kind of exciting is that background totally disappears, and you have this, I have to say, I've said it a lot of times, but the General's white chalk pencil is just heavenly, and it's
creamy.
Literally, I am like the fairy godmother here, coming in and just making magic with this pencil. So thank you to our friends at General Pencil, because maybe we should just have them rebrand it as the Magic Wand. I think we can talk to them about that. So having lots of fun, just looking at these beautiful poke roots, and even just in that amount of time, look how they've changed. They were really kind of, and you can see on the outside, the ones that aren't done yet are kind of stuck and feel like they're getting lost in the composition, whereas the ones that I've shaded are really starting to pop off the page. So such a fun process. And the way I chose to go at my shading was to sort of choose one element, as I started with these organic tangles, and then kind of do those ones throughout, and then go back and kind of start different elements. And I didn't have an exact plan. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I kind of started with one piece and was like, okay, I'm going to put some graphite in here, blend that out, and then add the white charcoal and see what happens, trying to both create some of the poke roots to come forward and some of them to go back.
And if you haven't taken a picture of your before doing the shading, please do.
Yes.
Because it's going to be so amazing to look at the difference between the before and after. It really is transformative.
So what you do is you take the before shot, and you also take an after shot, so that you can put them side by side.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because you can't remember what it looked like. Once you get all this graphite and white chalk on, you can't remember what it looked like.
And it's not a race, so enjoy it. Take your time, and And also, it's fun to see, like, when you're working on a big piece like this, you can get maybe hung up on some mark that wasn't pleasing to you, or you thought something looked all wrong. But once you've added all these things around it and you start to evolve your work and then add in the shading, you're like, oh, I can't even remember what that thing was, or maybe it becomes your favorite part, or it becomes less apparent, and in a way it just becomes part of what you did. And I think that uniqueness adds to the character of anything,
What's interesting to me at this point watching you, Molly, is that the poke root and the poke leaf were the first things that went down. So ordinarily that would mean those were the ones that were going to be, less in the forefront. But the minute you put this white on there and brought it closer, now they're really popping out, coming at you. That right-hand corner there is just so spectacular.
So fun. And now I'm trying to work on these Martha This Vertigo series she did, which was actually just so fun. That one I really enjoyed. And just putting some real dark lines where the needles go towards that stem, but making sure to sort of hold on to the whiteness of the stem, and that helps. I think I even put a little bit of chalk on there just to bring it, and it's amazing. You get that chalk pencil nice and sharp. You can put little bits that just add some highlights here and there. So
I actually sharpened like 5 of my white chalk pencils and had them in my hand.
See them here; they're very tiny.
Yeah,
they get to be tiny, and it's a great tool. And I almost like the way when they're so small, you can work them into the nooks and all that stuff, and fit them in the palm of your hand, like I am here.
I like that sometimes. When you're working on a Zentangle project, you can put shading in that seems to be a realistic format for shading. And then other times you add shades of gray that are just forming with the pattern, so that it's, and they both have their places, and they work all the time. It doesn't matter. Once somebody sees the whole thing, it's the whole piece in general. You get to choose. Isn't that fun? You get to choose.
So look here, those poke roots were like really muted into the background, and I'm adding some real heavy chalk here to kind of like maybe just make them a little more noticeable, because they had gotten so sucked into the background.
Well, and it lifts them up, right? They were in the background, and now they're above the background.
So I think one of the things I tried to do was look at every element and then sort of create shadows around it.
Look at that.
So animated,
oh
right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Again, like the fairy godmother coming in and just
know.
making everything come together. So.
And you're really heavy-handed with the chalk, right?
I am, and that's not for everybody, but I like to put it on there. I sometimes almost use the pencil itself as a tortillon, kind of first putting down that line and then going back and kind of blending it with the pencil itself. Just a different technique. Adds a nice, what a pretty highlight, right?
Mm.
This is our new Tangle Puyang, so it was fun to introduce that to everybody and see how those came out. And then shading around it really dark to make the Puyang kind of pop off the page. This is a little bit of a different shading technique we sometimes use, and afterwards I was kind of like, but it
happens to all of us,
right? But then it ended up working out fine. So I
actually did that on mine.
Did
too.
you?
Yeah,
that's funny because
yeah.
it's like it gives you this cool highlight, and it was it's almost like adding another pattern in your shading.
It's like a tufting.
Yeah.
And if you look at the original newsletter that we announced Tripoli in, it creates this optical illusion that makes that shadow look like it's there. So we're just emphasizing that.
Yep. Putting the white chalk on these orbs, that kind of pops them off in the Tripoli pattern too.
And you can see how Molly's holding all her tools there. And then pausing.
She's thinking.
Take some time, look at it, wait for it to speak to you.
You say that like she doesn't do that much. Look Hey, look, Molly, she thinks.
Well, I don't know what to tell
The
you.
point is that we're editing this
Yeah.
just so you can see all of the tangling. But it's important to know that there's a lot of reflecting and letting it speak to you to decide what to do next.
Marisu's so fun to shade. I actually noticed a couple of the pieces that I saw people working on that the whole piece would be not shaded except for the Marisu because they just couldn't not shade it, right?
You can't leave it. Yeah.
So exciting.
I loved what you did with the Huggins. I don't know that I've ever seen that pattern,
That fill in it. Yeah.
that fill.
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure I did it because I saw it on one of your tiles.
That is funny.
Yeah, just a little bit something different here, trying to put some dramatic shadows. Huggins, of course, is great for shading. You can get that weaving effect. So,
Look at that.
and I tend to go dark with the shading, but what's great about shading is that you don't have to put it down that dark. You could do it much lighter and then, step away and be like, I want to add a little more. It's not like ink where you have one shot. Shading, you can put it down in layers.
Right, and you can always go back and add more after you've used the tortillon.
Now, this was a pleasant surprise. Martha sort of introduced a really cool technique in her texturing day with using the colored pencil as a device to put tangles in, and it was like a whole other layer. And what I found was the graphite and the white charcoal did beautiful things over it because the watercolor pencil doesn't move a lot once you put it down. I mean, it moves some, but not much. But when you put like the pastel and the graphite over it, that moves a lot until you can get this, like, look at how that's cool, right?
Oh,
it's
that's
really
It looks
fun.
almost like a resist.
Yeah, so that was a fun discovery for sure.
Wow, that's really cool because you put the white pencil over it, but the yellow stays.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I'll have to try that.
I was my Fangle was exuberant, so that was fun. Oh, here we go, Mom.
So here we go with Maria's.
Yeah. Well, I had some fun with mine, and I decided the first thing I was going to attack was the poke root, like Molly. And I decided that I would go red because I had a lot of yellow in my overall composition, and I thought it looks a little jaundiced. It's like a little too much yellow. As much as I love ochre, it's like my favorite color. I said I had to bring in some vibrant, maybe red, and some blue later on. But I decided that I would color these poke root, each individual one, and they just kept getting redder and redder. And I did this. First, you do a little circle to hang on to a highlight, and then you put the red not quite to the edge. You can see that I left a halo around the edge, and wait till you see what happens with that. It has this kind of glowing look, like they're backlit, and you can see right through them. And I noticed that on some of my old books, when they were working on a composition that had fruit or berries or apples or something, they always had these highlights around the edges that I never really appreciated before. And then once I tried it, it's like, wow, that looks really cool.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is spectacular. It's like you see her put down the first one, and you're like, "No, what is happening here?" And then all of a sudden she adds some more, and you're like, "This is magical! Like, it's ridiculously magical." I gotta say, Mom, I was overwhelmed when
Right?
yeah,
Isn't that fun?
so cool.
I don't have as much success with the white chalk as you do, Molly, and I'm going to have you teach me that one because my white chalk never gets really, really white, but
Well,
it was
maybe
white enough.
Yours doesn't have as much magic in it as mine.
Maybe. But look don't they look like they're transparent?
I'm pretty sure it's doing you pretty well here.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
Right. But it was fun doing this. I had never treated poke root like that before as a real fruit. you know?
And of course, there is that like sense of elegance of limits. As you all know, we have like 1,000 pens at our fingertips here, but we really stuck to using only the pens that were in
and pencils, yeah.
Yeah, but of course, you don't have to do that. You can use any pens or pencils you want to.
Right.
But there is something about what happens or is discovered or created with that.
The limit.
Yeah, the limits there. So
Yeah.
I think that was fun. We did that, and we would have never discovered these details by going back and using the watercolor pencils afterwards.
Right. And not using water on them.
I know.
Yeah,
like I
I
actually
know.
didn't even think we would do that, and then it was like something that evolved in the process.
I just kept adding more and more red, and they became really lush.
And I got to interrupt to point out like how the Puyang, when Maria did the Puyang, she just did that, one of the strokes over it. So it just folded that into that.
This was a berry that fell off the vine. You can see.
Overripe.
Yeah. I actually dropped some water when I was doing the original color, and I thought, well, I'll work it into the design, right? So I did a berry, and you can see the little stem that's sitting there without the berry on it.
It's like overripe.
Yeah. But it's fun. I like that.
Oh my goodness, they got like shiny. I don't even know how you made them. That's so fun.
And the reason why is by leaving that aura, that halo on the outer edges. So I'm actually shading the whole piece right now at the bottom, and just to bring it off the like it's a separate piece. Kind of gives it a little bit of something or other. But I do like the berry going behind the Puyang there.
So pretty. What a nice detail. What's next?
I kind of bounced all over the place, and I apologize to anybody that's watching, but my mind was racing. So, where do I go now? Where do I go now? What do I do?
And I think some people will find that too.
So I think a lot of us took inspiration from the other, and I know I took inspiration from both Martha and Maria on adding those highlights to the Rixty and adding it to the leaves.
Too.
Yeah.
Again, we're taking something that had started to fall into the background as we drew, and brought it back into the foreground. I thought that was kind of a really neat kind of thing, the more metamorphosis of the drawing.
Well, it definitely brings visual differences between the tangles, which is nice. Starts to kind of bring, the composition alive, where each tangle has a little more presence.
Again, I because I had so much yellow on there, I started adding lots of white, even in the backgrounds, it just seemed to be the right thing to do.
Yeah, just kind of sort of working over some of the template that was there, which is fun.
It actually went away real quickly. Look
I
at
know,
that.
that's fun.
Right? And when you tangle over that, you won't even be able to see where it went. I wonder where that goes, like tire treads on the roads, right? Where does that go?
And I like that everybody, instead of sometimes on project packs we have different colors, everybody had the same set of colors. And when you look at just our 5 pieces that we're working on, they have this totally different look, even with the same color, the same palette.
I agree with you, Ricky. It was kind of fun. I've been enjoying watching people post their work, because I have noticed a couple of people introducing some other colors in there, which is fun too. So some purples, and I haven't seen too many of people that decided not to use the color, because I think the color was sort of this fun invitation to sort of get something down on the template, which was nice.
Well, what I thought about the color, the way you put it down and everything, willy-nilly, because it wasn't any exacting. It was, let's just get some color on the background and worry about it later. Or I mean, not worry, but work with it. But I think, to me, that took the pressure off this pristine template. Now it was a piece of artwork. Let's roll up our sleeves and go at it. It took away the fear, because we already don't have a blank piece of paper anymore.
Right. I think what I sort of fell in love with this project and the vision of it behind it was that here we have this template that's got a lattice and a very structured thing. And at first glance, I think people might have thought, oh, we're going to fill in each space and it's going to be like this, kind of like fill in the tangle or whatever. But I love that we approached it in this way. It was an invitation for a composition, and it was like, how are these going to be guides? How are they going to structure this work? How are we going to put these tangles down here and allow it to be this infrastructure of growth and something that's more artistic and creative? And I think we can look at that in our other tangled artworks in our lives too. Like, just because we have this loose structure of how things are supposed to go, it doesn't mean that we can't follow them in a way that's not predictable, in a way that overlaps and undergrowths and all these different crazy things. It's all still part of the same work, the same mission. So.
Well, part of that is responding to it as you go along and not like pre-planning it too much. Like, there's a general structure, and then as you get going, it's like, oh, well, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And you can follow that in any direction you want to go.
I'm still finding berries here and there.
Right. I know, right?
Yeah. I kind of like that. They're sort of nestled, unexpected.
Yeah. Your cubine was really great, how that twisted. That was pretty cool. Great idea.
And I like that effect of auraing it, and before you did the fragment.
Right.
And all the betweed you put in there, I didn't even end up using it because I ran out of space. But the betweed was, that's magical.
Well, Martha suggested it as a texture tangle, and I would never have guessed texture tangle with that. But it was perfect. It fit in any kind of situation, and it almost looked like it was being sewed together like a crazy quilt, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally, right. Stitches.
Like a crazy quilt.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And this puyang you put in the back there is almost like it was nestled in amongst the growth, It was like a mushroom that came out or something. So cool.
And that puyang was upside down. I did it upside down.
Is there a right side up though? I always
down. If you saw how we demonstrated the original one, somebody mentioned, and I think I actually did draw it upside down. I had the paper the other way.
Yeah.
And sometimes things just happen.
Yeah, I think that's cool. They can go in any direction, which is cool.
Look at that, how it just
gets
makes
glossy
it pop,
right away.
It's so fun.
Yeah, glossy. That's a good...
See, Mom, it's magic.
It is magic.
Yeah. Very cool. And that's a cool way to do Marasu, the unraveling. That's really neat.
If people don't know where Marasu comes from, it's my three sisters, Madeline, Rachel, and Sue, Marasu, Marasu.
Beautiful. It's really nice to compare how each person does different tangles differently. And Maria's bunzo is so different from, for instance, mine or Molly's or Martha's or Julie's, and it really gives a inspiration or permission to discover how you are going to do each one of these tangles.
Moon pie has become a favorite of mine because it can go into any corner of something and just add a little, something or other that might be missing.
Fun. Yeah,
I like it.
A lot of people asked about the moon pie. It's technically just a tangulation, I guess, of crescent moon. So never ever really lived as a tangle on its own, but it's so worthy of its own name, I guess. So we do consider it a tangulation, but we're not that exact about stuff, if anybody's ever noticed.
Yes.
Just enough to confuse the comments.
Right, yes,
right.
For
well,
sure.
I called it moon pie because it looks like a piece of pizza pie or a really pretty chocolate pie with raspberries around it or something,
I also wanted to note how you have some open space, which I think is visually very nice and welcomed for those of you. I sometimes forget that that's something you can do. And when I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe maybe I'll remember to stop next time. But I invite you all, if you have open space, to feel okay with it. Look at that. It's really nice there. You can see.
So I've seen some really unbelievable renditions of mycelium on the app, and it humbles me.
Very cool, yeah.
Right? The ones that are multiples and dancing together, and I just saw one that was like coming from the edges of a tile and coming in like 4 different directions, and all I could see was the negative space. I couldn't even tell that it was mycelium.
So cool.
And it was so cool. I sometimes forego the tortilla. Use my fingers.
Yep. Works too.
Sometimes, yeah.
Great contrast.
Yeah, my hands were covered by the end. It might even be a tip to take like another piece of paper while you're working on this to put under your hand, because I found that like the whole side of my hand was covered in graphite, that I started using like a scrap piece of paper so that I wouldn't continue to smudge it.
That is a very good suggestion. So anybody who hasn't started yet, get a piece of paper that goes under their hand.
Yeah. Just nice to keep, I mean, if you're worried about it. If you kind of love getting into it, then, go for it.
And it's not so much that it gets on your hand, but then it gets from your hand, maybe
back.
It offsets back onto the paper. Yeah.
Mom, I like how you, instead of doing a dark background over that tipple, you got it white. So it really, it makes it's a different way of
different look.
Shading the background. Here we go, Rick.
So this is mine, and I'm doing the traditional shading on Huggins, which is just so wonderful, because when you go in on the tortillon, it instantly becomes, you got this 3-dimensional weaving, and like any shading, you want to leave the white to have the contrast, because if you just brought it all the way out, then you wouldn't have that.
Wow, look at that.
And it just takes a little bit, just bring it out a little way. And then all of a sudden, it goes 3D.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Rick, it's cool how you sort of isolated some of that original lattice as a component of your composition, and that's cool. Like I lost that early on, but it really makes this cool way the tangles are sort of like trapped behind it, and some of them coming over and under. So the shading possibilities with that detail is really neat.
So before I put in the tipple, I aura'd the Rixty,
yeah.
And it has this sort of like, it really separates it. So a lot of times, that's one of the beautiful parts of aura-ing, is you get that gap, and it's almost like a cut paper lifted up.
It was a nice breathing room, yeah. It does make the tangle pop. That was a good idea.
And so where it goes into space, so to speak, I took Martha's technique, which we keep talking about it, but you'll get to see it in a moment, of going into using the pencil as creating patterns.
The colored pencil.
The colored pencil, yeah. So on Cadent, I just took Cadent and kept adding tethered auras to these, like made these great shapes, and then filled in the center with the brown.
You know what? It almost became another tangle. It's the cadent is almost gone, right?
So pretty.
And then I just went in and just darkened the corners ever so in the brown, just to add a little subtlety to it. But it's cadent at its core, and it's a good idea of showing where you can take all these things. So I did very traditional cubine, and I was very light-handed with that. More, I didn't want to have this really heavy graphite, so I was very light-handed with the initial laying down of the graphite, because they were fairly large areas.
So I think what Rick's composition, which is really cool and good for anybody to recognize is that he worked really big, a lot bigger than the rest of us. And that's a great exercise in general, just to go on a piece of big paper that, and practice working really big, just for the experience of it. It feels different.
And it was nice to have I don't know about everybody else, but I really enjoyed using the brown 05 and
Yeah.
08. You had bigger pens to like allow that ability to work bigger.
And it gives you the option to then do something inside it if you want. So like if that cadent or the Huggins had been smaller, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did with them.
Right. That diva dance is very, very cool. Sort of a different approach to it, and it's like so cool.
It was sort of like I used the technique of embedded letters and diva dance, but growing inside into itself, from the outside in.
Oh, this is a great.
That Tangle
Yeah.
got almost looks like a weapon.
Right.
Yeah,
What
it's
are
very
those cards?
cool.
Those,
Yeah.
Those throwing
those
stars,
Yeah, it's very cool. I love it. So neat.
So
Love
by
that.
opening up a part of the Tangle leaf, you can make it a window to what would be behind it and create this sort of like hollabah, thing going on.
Pinwheel, really, right?
Right.
Yeah, like it would spin. So cool. Nice work. The orbs.
Or a fighting star. Whatever.
Right.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. The shading helps a lot too. That's so cool.
It's very pretty.
On my Tripoli, I decided to just add graphite in the corners, and then to treat, again, as Maria said, because I was working so large, I'm going to treat those elements individually. So there's different ways you can shade. You can shade the entire tangle, or you can shade the elements of a tangle. And in this case, I'm getting to shade the small elements within the tangle. So I'm giving those, each one of those seed shapes, a little bit of shape with the graphite. And then when I finish with with doing that, I've still got a little bit of graphite, or quite a bit of graphite, on the tortillon, so I can go in and put a little low light, or whatever that's called, and give some 3D to that orb in the middle. So I just did that on all of them. And when I was doing this, I had in mind that, okay, I'm going to work with graphite first, and then I'm going to come back later with the white chalk. So I decided to see where will the graphite take me. And then once I had done all of my graphite, I come back and I work the white chalk, and then maybe go back and forth a little bit. But that was just the way I did it.
Yeah, I mean, really, so many ways to approach any of them. So it's exciting to see that you too you could take a little bit of each one of these, techniques, and then maybe invite in your own as you go along. So just know that there's many different ways to do this. And I know I said this at the beginning of this, but this was a very involved project, and I think even more involved than when we first designed it. Like, we knew it was going to be fun to do a big piece, but it does take more hours to complete something like this, but also so exciting. So I just want to give all of you that space to create and an encouragement to keep going with it. Like, I really, really encourage you to trust this process. Take your time, rewatch the videos, do a little bit here, a little bit there, and don't give up on it, because I think that it's worth making it, to your end, wherever that is, and just figuring out where it can go and not getting caught up in where you are at right now.
And part of that is knowing when to just put it on the side and then pick it up when you look at it or turn it this way and that. And it's like, I know what I want to work on next.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking like, okay, how is the end result? And we keep repeating ourselves, or I keep repeating myself on this, but just find the next thing that you want to focus on and put all of your attention in that, and then back away and look at it, and then something else will grab your attention, and then focus on that. And pretty soon you've got a finished piece.
And it had been a long time for me. I mean, I tangle a lot, but it had been a while since I had truly like gotten lost in a piece. And there was one day where I came down to tangle, and it was, I think I started at like 10 a.m. And then with like maybe one little break in the middle, I came back up at like 5 p.m. and I was like, it was dark out already. Like here in New England, it gets dark. And I was like, what happened to the day? Like I literally was lost in my own world, and it was fabulous. Like I needed that day. And I don't very often have a whole day to get lost like that, but there it was, and it was a wonderful thing to do. But if you only have 10 minutes at a time and you just kind of chip away at it, then I invite you to just use those 10 minutes to add a little bit here and there, and you'll get there eventually.
I had the opportunity to be watching Maria and understand what she was doing, or at least pay attention to what she was doing. And it's like, okay, I'm going to try that. And so this is my first nail, going right to the main piece, no practicing here. And I'm saying that just to like encourage you to like, okay, there's lots of berries here. And if you don't like the first one, you'll, and if you decide to do this, you can take it and play with that and see where it goes. And when I did my initial structure, I based those radiating organic tangles in different colors, and so I'm reinforcing that. So like the ones that are on the red band are going to have red berries, and the others are going to have gold berries and blue berries, and just sort of took that theme and ran with it.
That's fun. It's like when you put the flowers in dye, and then the flowers all bloom different colors.
The Queen Anne's lace.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably where the colors came from in that blob at the beginning, at the base of my.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, nice call. Yeah.
But a little globe. It looks like a vision into another world.
Yeah. But here I'm just playing with shading the individual elements, like where that is going through the Rixty, which is a really cool tangle. That was one of my best birthday presents. Thank you, Maria.
Another thing to remember is that just because you started your shading process doesn't mean you can't like pick up a pen again. So if you're in the middle of shading something and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I could add this here or that there, just do it. This is your piece, your work. That's fun, Ricky, with the yellow.
And I was very careful not to carefully fill it in, because I like the little bits of white or the paper shining through it.
Mm-hmm.
And here just adding the blue theme on the blue stem. And again, leaving a little bit of white so there's some interesting things going on, not all one thing. Adding some graphite on the edge of the stem. Then going at the blueberry.
Look at that. That's nice.
I really like how that aura separates it from the background. That's
so cool.
Really worked out well. So just going back and forth, I think I had felt like 17 things in my hand.
I know, right? Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I looked down at one point and I had 4 graphite pencils. It's I don't need
You don't need that many. Well, you get caught up in what you're doing, which is really fun.
And in that Fengle there, I added graphite in those little orbs. And it just, it's not immediately obvious, but it just made it a little bit brighter. And here I'm going back exuberantly. You can see I'm shaking the camera, so sorry about that. I found that in doing this type of highlighting, if I have a slightly dull white charcoal, I can push really hard and also use it as a tortillon. And so I like just the right amount of dullness.
Yeah, so it doesn't scratch the paper.
Right.
No, obviously it doesn't break. Yeah. I love all the different color berries. It's fun.
And this is something that you might not notice just looking at it, but I decided to go in and play with the color that was coming through. And on the light part of the cubine, just make it a little bit lighter, just to play with the contrast and just tone the color down.
I think that does make a difference for sure.
And then this is one of those places that, check out the before and then the after. When you just add that little bit of highlight, it's like, whoa.
That's my favorite. My eyes go to that one tangle every time I look at your piece. I'm like, always there. I'm going to try that for sure.
So I did my highlighting all in alignment in one direction and then turned it and did it all in the other direction, just so I didn't have to keep turning the tile
That's cool
back
to
and
bring
forth.
your chop out.
Yeah, I did that on mine too, and I invite other people to do that too, because you want people to know you did it. That's important. Yeah, so you kind of want to invite that to be prominent. And look at that on Ricky's, it really pops it forward. So cool.
So just continuing that theme of adding a little bit of tipple with the colored pencil into the white space.
Look at the little berries. What does that look like? I mean, it's so neat.
And then the same technique highlighting on the Huggins there.
Well, you got some interesting Huggins going on because of the bigger and the black orbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool.
So we use this project to share with people all these different Tangle genuses, right? How they play, and it's been fun to introduce them to you all, the textures, the drama.
So here we are with Martha, and Martha did a really cool thing. She'd put the doodah around the whole border, and now she is adding the highlighting on that, and then also the highlighting on her fengle there.
That's cool. So she did the white chalk, the opposite of what you did, right?
Exactly.
That's
right?
cool. Putting the white in first.
And I think that's one of the takeaways of how we're presenting this project pack with all 5 people, because everybody did it in different ways. And just within the house here, we all took inspiration from others as how it was done. And we're hoping, the message, the meta message here is that we're not saying this is the way that this particular tangle has to be done. It's that this is the structure, this is the format, and now you take it in ways that maybe we never even thought of.
So her moon pie sort of clustered in there as a background, and she's using it there as a texture tangle.
And of course, her beautiful moon pie berries, which are
Look
like
at those
everywhere. I feel like it was almost came in like an invasive species. It's like,
or somebody just threw a whole bunch of these.
It's,
stems on them,
and they're still moving. You can see the resonant auras of like a Indirella coming off.
It's like somebody came and decorated for a holiday that we didn't know existed, and we're celebrating it.
Really cool.
So fun. One thing I want to point out with Martha's that was really exciting, I think, is that her background to begin with had a lot of different, like the colors were very different. And I feel like that came through in the piece, and it was really exciting that you have these splotches of blue and splotches of green and red and whatever it was, so that it almost looked like a Monet to begin with.
Right.
And she was able to play with that with the tangles. So that was, I think, a really cool discovery with hers. Indirella, look at that.
Right. And I also we'll see if we see it again, but she used the same pattern or the fill in her Huggins and in her Cadent.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I'll have
And
to look
so
at that
when
again.
we zoom out again, be sure to check that out. It's a great unexpected thing.
Nice highlights. Those are beautiful. So she's probably got a palm full of pencils right now too, just kind of going back and forth. And
But her stuff is really alive. I think those moon pie berries sort of, because that if the table wiggles, they start moving. It's almost like you expect to have a little tinkling of bells.
they're like on little metal springs.
Yeah.
So fun.
And one of the things that we don't have in this particular shot, but we'll show it to you tomorrow, is what Martha did with some of the shading on the color in the background. It's really, really cool, and we'll get you to, we'll show you that, not tomorrow, but later. We have another wrap-up video that Maria and I are doing with the actual pieces of everybody, and really want you to see that. And
That's
again,
a cool technique.
right? And you don't immediately see it, but it's there. So much going on.
That just right there, that little spot. I'm like, I could
Look at
be
that.
obsessed with that. Just
Yeah.
really awesome. Nice and dark. That's cool to just like push it back.
And I love how that mycelium has that gold at the one edge and the blue at the other edge.
And she did a little detail there with the diamond shapes. Oh, here's Julie.
And here we have Julie's.
Hi, Julie.
Yeah, and I give Julie a lot of credit for like she had a lot going on while we were working on this, and she kept plugging away at this and put so many hours into this. So I can't even tell you how much I appreciate all this work she's done. It's a lot of hours of tangles and amazing work.
And a couple things I wanted to point out is in the upper right, you can see where the cadent is going in like two different directions, and it's like, that's so cool, right?
Oh yeah.
Where is this?
The cubine, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
The cubine in the upper right.
Oh,
That is very cool.
That is really neat.
And,
Escher-like.
and then her Indirella star
Yep.
on the lower right there, how they're all sort of coming together with a common point.
Yeah, I like how she used the lattice to sort of really these tangles kind of were almost like they're in like a raised bed and they're like trying to like grow within their little gardens, and then they get like stuck, and it's very successful and very well done. So I enjoy that too a lot. So cool.
I like the Fengle.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the background with the tipple with the colored pencil worked so well here. It makes the other tangles come about, but it sort of creates your compositional space is there. So amazing work. Really, really cool.
And again, remind yourself that everybody had the same colored pencils, the same tangles, and look how different it came out. You know, we always talk about how we see tangles as colors. So you think you've got your tube of whatever it is, cerulean red, and you've got your tube of Fengle, and you've got your tube of cadent, and then how you apply it is how you apply it.
Yeah.
And
Very,
you know,
very
and
cool.
her cadent and Huggins, doesn't have a fill in it, and yet it has a beautiful softness. You know, almost like it's like velvet.
Well, you have the underwash coming through, so you're really taking advantage of that. And I think that's important to see that this, again, the spaces left untangled are really valuable. So you don't have to fill every space.
And her background was very pastel. So the light, she kept everything light, which it just looks beautiful.
And her bunzo, very dramatic, as
Right.
Julie did tell us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so in our next video, Maria and I are going to do a wrap-up, and we have all of the originals here in the studio. And we also have a guest
Appearance.
of another masterpiece that's going to be, we'll show it to you. And we are just so grateful that you have come this far with us, and we hope that you have enjoyed this as much as we have. And please, if you're not done, don't feel pressured to rush. Just take your time with this, and when you're done, perhaps share it with everybody on the app.
Oh, I love
I
seeing them.
think
So
that-
if you share them, please share them with me.
I think that each one of all of you who have done this project should have an opening at your house, invite friends,
Yes.
serve wine,
Or whatever.
and
Or
have an
juice.
unveiling or juice, and have an unveiling of this masterpiece that you did, and you'll sign prints. You take prints.
Yeah. And maybe if you have some neighbors that also did one, that are also
Yeah,
tanglers,
yeah.
that did this project pack. You could all do it together.
And talk about how it worked and how it
Yeah.
came about.
I actually started another one. I'm
You
not
did?
even. Oh yeah, yeah. I started another one because I'm doing another one with some friends. So this time I'm doing it very different. So I've seen some ideas already. So I'm on my second one and actually really enjoying it. So because I thought about things as I went along. So
Awesome.
anyway,
Well, much love, everybody. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in our wrap-up video. And
See you later.
have a
Take
great
care.
day. Bye now.
Bye.